Another ISPO.com special. I'm very happy to say welcome to a special guest who was on stage some minutes ago. It's Foster Huntington from the United States. He is kind of famous because he invented something like the hashtag van life, but is also like, I say, a little bit of a role model when it comes to a life committed to the outdoors and traveling and not do the ordinary thing. So please welcome Foster Huntington. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Let's get to know you a little bit better. So actually the first question I want to ask you is, how has your year 2023 been so far?
Been pretty good.
Yeah, what did you do?
I worked on a bunch of for years I was working all the time, and kind of like when I stopped living in my van 10 years ago, up until like a year and a half ago, I was just working on video stuff all the time, and then I finished a bunch of commercials and took a break and have been getting back into kind of taking care of myself, because I was working on so much stuff. You're like, life kind of comes to a halt, so I getting back to going to the gym, getting back to going camping, getting back to doing road trips, getting back to going surfing, like kind of rediscovering the stuff that I actually really like that I'd lost sight of, and kind of just with work, following a career.
So busy, and then kind of rediscovering everything.
Yeah.
And getting it a little bit back, having a life,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, actually, you mentioned surfing is something you like, but also skateboarding and other stuff.
Yeah.
So what is actually like kind of next to surfing your most favorite sports?
Dang. Well, I do like to go hunting.
Yeah.
I love to skateboard.
Yeah.
I love, I grew up snowboarding. So like snowboarding was I would probably say snowboarding has had like the largest impact on my life.
Yeah.
I don't do it as much as I used to. I'll do it like a couple times a year. But in terms of kind of informing the way I look at the world, I still have dreams about snowboarding,
Yeah,
so,
really?
Oh yeah, like hitting wind lips and
Wow.
the snowboarder David Benedict from Munich, or he's from this area, so I would say in terms of my favorite thing to do now would be to surf.
Yeah.
The most impactful thing on my life has been snowboarding, I think.
Okay, I see. So how much do you go surfing compared to snowboarding?
I go surfing more. I'm going to go for 10 days next month, drive to Mexico and
sweet.
do surfing. Yeah.
That's not
And
bad.
then skateboarding, I have a bowl at my house.
Yeah.
So I skateboard a bunch too. So and a couple of so I don't know. I probably skateboard the most. But I love skateboarding, but to me it was always like I'd rather be surfing and skateboarding, or surfing. Yeah, I'd rather be surfing or snowboarding. I don't know. It's hard for me to pick.
I can feel the conflict here.
Yeah.
But you love
skateboarding has had a profound impact on my life too.
Yeah.
So.
I can imagine. But when you say about impact, so how would you describe the impact of snowboarding and skateboarding, for example?
It can as a teenager, it literally was the lens in which I viewed the world and thought what was cool and what wasn't cool. What music I listened to, it totally informed.
Kind of your inner compass.
Yeah. It set my inner compass, yeah.
Yeah, really cool. So, well, as I said in the intro, you were on stage some minutes ago and you shared your story a little bit. So how did that feel?
I've done a bunch of different interviews in the U.S. and some in the New York Times and stuff. So I'm familiar with sharing my story. It was definitely, I haven't done an in-person thing. It's all so much. One thing I like about social media and a lot of the stuff that I make is I can create wherever I am, and there's no real kind of actual interaction. It's definitely different to do it in person, but it was cool.
Yeah. So because here the entire sports world is listening, and it was everything is recorded, it's going to be broadcasted at some point. So when you keep that in mind, is there some kind of a unique message, something that you would like that the sports world need to hear? That is there something on your mind that you think, dear sports community all over the world, there is something, here is my message for you? I know it's a tough one, right?
I think it's really important for companies and people in the sports world to not lose sight of what it is that they're actually doing. If you're a skateboarding brand, you're about skateboarding.
Yeah.
If you're a snowboarding brand, you're about snowboarding. And I think it's easy, like in the modern day, people are trying to be something to everyone. And I don't think that works. I think it's more important to be really kind of true to whatever it is you are. Like if you're doing this, then you don't need to try to be a fashion company.
Yeah.
You're doing that, like it's just, I think people can kind of lose sight of that because that's just what everyone else is doing.
You think that can get the brands blurry and not authentic anymore?
Yeah, I think you can dilute it. If you get too far off, I mean, I think collaborations are cool.
Yeah.
But you can't a collaboration's cool when you do like one of them or two of them. It's not cool when your entire thing is a collaboration.
Yeah, I see. I get it.
Because you're diluting what your core is,
Yeah, I get it. And actually, because it's not a one-way channel now, you can ask the community something else as well. So if you would have the opportunities, like the sports world all over the world is coming here to that place at ISPO Munich, would you like to ask a question to the sports industry? So I don't know, something like, why are you doing that? Or what is your response to that?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I mean, I think it's important for people to not lose sight of the fact that as there's an increased emphasis on sustainability, ultimately, if you're trying to be sustainable, the reality is that nothing that you buy new is going to be more sustainable than keeping something old working. I would ask people to remember that, that there's, instead of like, you can buy a really nice jacket, and I recommend buying a super nice jacket because Gore-Tex is legit and all that stuff is legit, but you can get that jacket retreated. If there's a rip in it, you can mend that rip, and I think there's a path forward for companies to not just make disposable stuff, but make stuff that's actually, really built to last. So
I see. So the actual question is, how can we go in this direction, right? Okay. Yeah. Well, I think it's a super legit question. It's super important. Well, another thing, because you showed a nice movie on your time spending here in Munich. Is it your first time in Munich?
No, I've been here maybe 5 times, 6 times.
Okay. And when you were traveling around a little bit, how was it?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. What did you do?
I went up to the Alps. I've been up to the Alps a few times. One of my favorite times. And one thing that I think is so cool about the European mountain experience compared to the American mountain experience is I took a train, this was years ago, but I took a train up into the Alps and then hiked from that train up into the mountains and stayed in a hut. And it was like the coolest thing. Like they had dinner for me there. It was like a really beautiful hike up in the Alps and you're like on top of a mountain. Yeah. And that experience just doesn't exist in the States.
It doesn't?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, in Europe, people have been living in the mountains for thousands of years, hundreds of, if not thousands of years. In America, people have been living in the mountains forever, but there's not like the kind of the building, the infrastructure, so there's like, people living in the Americas for a really long time too, but they haven't been building buildings. So like this hut was like 300 years old, you know? And it's like, that doesn't, you don't hike up to the top of a mountain in America and see like a cool cabin that you can sleep in with beds that they bring food in and have like a dinner.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
I can see on your face and you really enjoy that. That is super
great.
Cool. Yeah, nice. Well, at stage, you also talked a little bit about the Burning House project. Yeah. And you asked people basically what would they take if their house is about to burn down, and what would they take? So, and you asked that question a lot of people. So I suppose you learn a lot about people, right? So what is it actually you learn about people when they tell you what is important to them?
I mean, I guess my takeaway is just that it's like the family heirlooms are the things that are super important to people. That are like, if you look at it, like this vase, that could be from your great grandmother, and it would have tremendous value to you, but it doesn't have any value to me. And those are the things that I'm like the most interested in. Are the ones that like have less monetary value, but way more kind of emotional value. You know?
So actually, it's not about practical things. It's just about the things like emotion attached on it, right? Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So about your lifestyle and what you do in your life. So actually, you're traveling a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Or kind of your main task, if you could say, is like traveling. So that raises the question, actually, do you have something like that you call a real home, like something where you're really at home?
I haven't really traveled full time in 10 years.
Ah, okay.
So I have a home. It's where the Treehouses are. So I'm this like these days I maybe travel like 2 months a year.
Yeah.
As opposed to back in the day or 10 years ago when I traveled literally all the time. So I have a house now. Yeah.
Ah, okay. This is super interesting, actually, because I like the perspective here is like, okay, this guy's traveling a lot, and as the inventor of kind of the van life thing, that is really a thing. And it also showed in your video and your treehouse. You talked about your treehouse and so on. I think so. You're really committed to how I say, to enjoy the outdoors, right? Yeah. So there is a lot of outdoors these days, like the urban outdoor, the adventure-oriented outdoor, or more the sporty outdoor, more the how I say laid-back micro-adventure type of outdoor guy. How would you define your personal outdoor?
I'm more of an immersive outdoor person.
Yeah.
I'm all about living in the woods.
Yeah, so really remote.
Yeah. Well, I'm not super remote, but I'm like an hour from Portland, and I'm like 25 minutes from the closest grocery store. But like for me, the outdoors is totally different now than like I'm gonna go on a hike on Saturday. It's like, oh, I need to go chop wood. All right, you gotta put on. It's pouring rain. Like, okay, where's my Gore-Tex? Where's my jacket?
Yeah, like,
where's my snowshoes?
So you really, I say, you take it as it comes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's definitely one thing that I'm 35, I'm going to be 36 in a month. And I think our generation of people that are, millennials and younger are in a really unique spot because we've been kind of in a situation where economically we never really got a full footing. There's like the 2008 financial collapse, then there was COVID. And so it's like the idea of owning a house in a city is really not feasible for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's so true.
So I think what people need to do is invest in this idea of like, hey, I can buy a house out in a rural place for a third or a quarter of what I can get here. And I think there's this idea that like, yeah, but I'm not going to be able to have my coffee shop. I'm not going to be able to have and it's like, well, community is really kind of what you make it, you know? And by having a place where you can, if you live with lower overhead, whole new things come into action.
You would say, give it a shot.
Go buy a place in an area with your friends. Like, oh, someone from this area. Like, I think that, and then once you live like that, your life will be so much more connected to the outdoors. Because ultimately, like, to me, being in the outdoors is about reminding myself that nature is a super powerful force and humanity is like less strong. And that's what I like about it,
Yeah, I like the idea how you think about it. I think it's super cool. It would, relieve a lot of stress from the urban part of the countries and total new perspectives on how to live your life. Yeah, that's cool. Speaking about living your life and the outdoor lifestyle, it's actually a question everybody is interested in, but nobody talks about. So what sucks most at being at the outdoors, living a van life? Like kind of, I don't know, loneliness, no hot showers, toilet situation. What is it what really annoys you? Where you say that is, I love that lifestyle, but this thing sometimes really is tough on me.
I would say like the thing that's the most that is like the hardest is finding a good spot to camp each day. Yeah. In America, it's tons of public land. Yeah. So like, for example, in Washington State where I live, I think it's like 75% or 80% of the state is public. Yeah. So you can camp pretty much most places statistically. So it's a lot easier to find places to camp. But like when you're tired, let's say you've been driving and you're like, oh, I'm tired. Like it can be kind of stressful to be like, where am I in a park tonight? Yeah. But there's like tons of good solutions, Yeah. So
your experience, right?
Yeah.
That still can stress.
Yeah, exactly.
I can imagine. So you also raised at the beginning of our little talk the question about sustainability. So we, like, as outdoor fans, we enjoy nature. We at the same time we try to preserve it, so it's kind of a playground. But at the same time, of course, we travel. We have like pollution. We litter a little bit and stuff like that. It's not kind of destroy the outdoors we enjoy so much. It's a conflicting thing. How do you think about that?
Well, that's another one. I think the idea that nature is our playground, I don't really like that as much as like we live in it, and that's one of the reasons why I like living in a rural area. It's like, oh, you're connected to it in a different way that's like slightly less hedonistic. I think it's a really big challenging thing, like how do companies exist around the outdoors in a traditional model? I don't know. I think there's a lot of really tough questions. I think like the model of consumerism is going to have to change in a meaningful way beyond just like making stuff more sustainably. Like I think businesses are going to have to restructure to like making less stuff, but having that stuff be much more kind of long lasting, You say kind of like more quality, less quantity, like that? Okay. Which is like hard as a consumer because we're conditioned to be like, oh, I can get this for cheaper on Amazon, or oh, I can get this like it's cheaper this way. Like I'm waiting for Black Friday, but it's like, well, the most sustainable jacket is the one you already have. Like,
that's true.
The maybe not the most sustainable snowboard is the one you already have, So it's like, which would require a big shift from a marketing perspective and like a whole branding perspective. But I think if you're actually interested, that's the only real feasible way of reducing the impact of an industry,
Yeah, sure. But they also can, provide a big chance, like for brands to position themselves and say, we stand for that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Another thing, because we're here at the trade show and we hear like all the topic of sports and outdoors are discussed here in Munich. And I wanted to ask you about how you think about like a mental health topic, because like a study that was recently quoted that a lot of people never felt so lonely in a world that is so well connected. And about how technology can connect you, like Instagram and all the social media stuff. And you also go on the outdoors, to look kind of to be a little bit for yourself, maybe alone. You actively look for loneliness or being remote. So how actually do you feel lonely sometimes if you get in the outdoors or something, and how do you deal with that?
So for me, like, because I spend a lot of time alone, especially camping. I camp by myself. Most of the time I'm by myself. And I have my dog, which is like a total kind of paradigm shifter. But also like, that's one of the reasons why I got into photography. Because I was like, oh, I'm seeing these beautiful things. I have no one to share it with. Let me take a photo and now I can share it. Like now I can like show I'll send it to my brother, I'll send it to my mom or my dad or my best friends. You're like, look what I just saw, So I think like that, in that way, I think social media can connect people, or at least give me, like I get something out of social media or just having technology in that capacity. I think where it becomes like isolating is where you're just constantly measuring yourself up and coming short, you're like, oh, I'm not experiencing it like that, or like I'm not with a bunch of friends, so like that kind of constant comparison to others people, I think results in loneliness and depression more.
So actually you need to be like more self-aware and not to get more into that kind of social media competition.
Don't get into that cycle. Easier said than done. I mean, it affects all of us.
True. That's so true. Another thing is like you had a great job in fashion, actually, right? Is that true? And now you kind of basically live where you want and like and do what you do, right? So actually you don't have kind of an ordinary life. People would say, one could say. So not living an ordinary life, not having like this one job and how this one straight line of how to live your life actually. And sometimes people refuse that. So how do you respond to that?
I think like within everyone, there's like this scale of like, how much freedom do you want? How much safety do you want?
Yeah.
You know? And I would say I'm definitely someone who wants more freedom than safety.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm fine working for myself, being like, well, I don't have any work lined up for February. You know, it's like, okay, well, I've like positioned my life in a way where like I can survive doing that, you know? But a lot of people can't. And in order to really have freedom and flexibility, you kind of have to like sever your ties with that stability, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
And not for everyone.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. But you have like the self-confidence to look a little bit more over it, right?
Yeah.
Behind that. Okay. Well, that's cool. And well, that is actually also a question, because you talked about how you say freedom, but also the stability and stuff like that. How do you envision your life in like kind of 30 years or something like that?
I kind of imagine it'll be pretty similar. Hopefully with a family in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like kind of similar project base, be in my middle 60s, you know, like I hope I'm still making stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I hope so. I probably will. So yeah, like kind of similar to what I am doing now, you know? Keep working on things that make me feel like I'm excited and childlike, you know?
So not changing too much.
Not changing too much, yeah.
Okay, I like that. Well, this is like the last question, so coming to an end, and thanks for being here. It was really an absolute pleasure to, how I say, discuss some things with you, and I like it the way you think. It's really, really cool. I think our audience and readers do as well.
Yeah,
so the last question, because that show claims, like, it's like the motto of this show is a new perspective on sports and new perspective on outdoors. So actually, do you think there are some new perspectives on sports and outdoors out there, or do you think there maybe is still something missing? Do you how to say, gain some new perspectives with your trip here, for example?
So one thing that I kind of, as someone who grew up skiing and snowboarding in the United States, the Warren Miller was like a big deal. Do you know who he is? He's like an American filmmaker.
Yeah. He's famous here as well.
Yeah. And like my kind of entire connection to skiing and snowboarding was once a year we would go see his latest movie in a theater. And then I had some VHSs of his movies, you know? And I think that like one thing that is kind of, I guess, different now, which I guess this is just nostalgia, you know, where I'm just like, I'm nostalgic to the position of everyone kind of being brought together in a community, or going to like a snowboarding video premiere in Portland, where I lived in Portland. And like now it's just like, oh, it's up on Thrasher, it's up on Snowboarder, it's like there's this new edit on YouTube. It's just like there's kind of like, it's so fragmented where there's less of those joint experiences, you know? So I really hope that there's like, you know, a more of an emphasis on these like joint experiences of people like coming together and enjoying what it is that they're all like really passionate about, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think here at the trade show we really
exactly.
share that idea. Well, on that I can not add anything else. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the rest of this day. Thanks for being here again.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thanks.